What is up, people? My name is Rancer SF4, and welcome to a new deck profile, this time featuring the Harpie Ladies. Now, for those who probably don't know, I actually got back into the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Around, I believe, mid or late 2014. I got back to the game before Duelist Alliance came out. And one of the first couple decks I made to get back into the game for a competitive standpoint was Synchron Quasar, which I will be playing the deck again, but I'm going to wait until the structure deck comes out, which is going to have a lot of good cards and good reprints that I'm looking forward to getting. But the second deck I made to go with it was the Harpie Ladies. Now, I didn't make a deck profile of the Harpie Ladies before I wanted to, but I heard there was a Harpie Harvest card coming out, and I thought, you know what, I'll just wait until that card comes out. It actually turns out it came out as one of the TCG OCG imports for Cross Souls, and I personally glad because now I got 3 of them. Now there is one thing I want to point out though. I am still making some changes to this deck. There's just only a couple more cards I need, and then this deck is pretty much completed. But just to make this deck a little bit different than most other people, because it is similar to other people's deck profiles that were done recently, I added in my own personal tech cards, both in the extra deck and the main deck itself. But as you can tell from around, there's no side deck. I do have a side deck, but it's just not that good, really, so I feel it's not really worth showing off. So we're gonna go ahead and get started the deck, no wasting time. So let's get started. To start with the Harpie Monster Library one, the 3 new card. This is Harpie Harpist. This card is pretty much one of your most abusive cards in the deck. For those who don't know what this card does, it actually has 2 effects you can use. The first one's kind of irrelevant, but I have a tech card that makes good use of it. The first effect of the card is when this card is normal summoned, you target one wing beast type monster on your side of the field other than this card, which I also want to point out, you can target another Harpie Harpist, just not the Harpie Harpist you normal summon to the field. Yeah, I know that's really confusing because when I read that, I thought, oh, you can't target another Harpie Harpist. I was like, oh, it's just only you cannot target the Harpie Harpist you normal summon, but you can target another one that was already on the field earlier. But it's whatever. But anyways, and then you target one face-up monster on your opponent's side of the field. You return both of them to the hand. That's a pretty irrelevant effect, it may look like, but like I said, I have a tech card that easily can abuse that, but we'll get to that later. You won't be using that effect as much though, because other cards can do a better job, but it's a pretty useful effect in case there's a situation you want to use this card's effect. But what you really want to use this card for is actually for its second effect. Its second effect is that during the end phase, if it was sent there to the graveyard if it was in the graveyard because it was sent there this turn, you get to add 1 level 4 wing beast type monster with 15 or less attack from your deck to your hand. Now just to keep in mind, this card is meant for Harpie Ladies, but you can also use it in Raid Raptors, because every Raid Raptor monster has less than 15 attack, so this card can easily search for one for you. But the main reason I think this card is way more abusable than Hysteric Sign is that you have so many combos and plays with this card, you go +2. You can go like +2. Like, say for example, you go King of Frangrance, you add a Kage to Kage or something like that. You add that, and then you detach this as one of its succeeds, and since it was still sent to the graveyard, then during the end turn, you go +2. You added 2 cards, and then next turn you get a guaranteed rank 4 play the next turn. It's kind of like the Gadgets Kage to Kage deck. It's like guaranteed rank 4s every freaking turn due to the fact the deck can abuse so many searchers. And this card is really abusive. And speaking of that, we have one other card that's really abusive. It's definitely one of the cards you want to go into the most is Harpie Shadowlord. This monster is pretty much your tour guide monster. You simply just discard a Harpie monster, and then you special summon another Harpie monster on your side of the field, except for herself, of course. First. Now, what's actually good about this effect is that you can not only can you discard Harpie Harpist, you could go for several freaking combos with this card. You could go for either rank 7 because obviously her effect is that when you have a Dragon type monster in the field, she instantly becomes a level 7 monster. So, which personally is a mandatory effect. It's not something you have the option to turn on or off. It's a mandatory effect. And sorry about that. And so this gives you access to rank 7 plays. Rank 7s aren't as consistent or as fast, but I like that option, so I like that. And either way, she's definitely a card you want to use the most. And speaking of that, we have 3 Harpie Queen. This is your terraforming monster today. You discard this, you get to add a Harpie's Hunting Ground from your deck to your hand. And for most of your matchups, Hunting Ground is pretty important because it helps you get rid of their back row. Which is one of the things I like about this deck of why I wanted to make the deck. Is because it's an anti-back row heavy deck. Yes, they can stop you from getting rid of the back row, but in order for them to do that, they have to waste their back row. So it's kind of like, yeah, you wasted that, then I got a next turn play, but But it's whatever. It's just good. It is a good beat stick too. 1900 attack plus the combined effect of Harpie Lady 1 and 100 grounds. This card can go from a 1900 beat stick to like a 2800 attack point beat stick. It gets over a lot of monsters in the game, so it's pretty good. And speaking of Harpie Lady 1, we want 3 of them. Personally, I was thinking of putting in one Cyber Harpist, but personally, Cyber Harpie, but personally, I honestly don't really like the card because I thought, what was the point about that when I could just use Harpie Queen because it's a slightly better beat stick and it's still treated as a Harpie, so I thought, why would I even use another card? I just prefer Harpie 1. It just pushes my OTKs really easy. And then final card, Harpie Monster, I run 2 Harpie Dancer. I don't really run 3. I don't run 3 in the deck. I just think it's too cloggy at 3. But you definitely can abuse this card's effect. Its effect is that you target 1 wind monster in your field, you return your hand, and then you get to normal summon another wind monster, which I want to keep in mind, that can also include herself. You could return her back to your hand, and then you can normal summon another Harpie, normal summon her again. With the 100 ground field spell, you could destroy up to 2 back row with this card. It's just a pretty good card. And then we have 1 Harpie's Pet Dragon. This is the only level 7 in the deck. And personally, while this card can be really good late game, it's honestly a freaking awful card if it's in your hand. That's why this deck has a lot of ways to get rid of it and make good use of it. But personally, I prefer using it just for the rank 7 plays, but that's about it. And everyone wants Zephyros, because Zephyros can abuse a lot of cards in this deck that you could recycle some of your cards and so forth. And the last 2 cards, I want 2 Summoner Monk. It's really, really good in this deck. Most decks nowadays don't really run this card anymore. I honestly think this card is really good in the deck because you can discard a Hysteric Sign, you go +1, and if you combine with that with King of Firearms and having a Harpie Harvest, you go +3. I can show you the combo if there's enough time. And I want a Kage to Kage engine in the deck. The main reason I run the Kage to Kage engine with the deck is because the main weakness of Harpie Ladies, in my personal opinion, and this is what I think puts them back from lots of tier 1 decks, is because the deck honestly loses a lot to, and not only does it lose a lot to some back row, the deck can lose easily to monster negation effects, which is why the cards like Skill Drain is a pretty big threat to this deck because it can negate their effects. So just in case if they try to pull that off, I do, however, have the Kage to Kage engine to make up for that. That way, especially on this, and I'll put it in defense mostly, and I'll try and tend to go for the effect if I want to, but that's completely up to you. That's it for the monster lineup, and for the spell cards of the deck. We run 3 Hysteric Sign. This card is both your main searcher card outside Harpist. You can only use each effect once per turn, only once during that turn. First effect is that you add an Elegant Egotist when you activate this card, so from your deck or graveyard, nothing too special. Second effect is that if this card was sent from the field or your hand to the graveyard, you get to add up to 3 Harpie cards with different names from your deck to your hand, which is pretty good. Which is actually a pretty good card. It's just a good searcher. It's definitely very abusive. Not as much as Harpie Harvest, but a very abusive card. 3 Harpie's Hunting Ground. This is your main MST type card. Whenever a Harpie Lady monster is normal special summon, you destroy 1 spell trap on the field. But keep in mind, it's a mandatory effect, so you cannot stop this effect. But luckily, you have the option to get rid of itself in case if there's no more back row to get rid of. But you'll see that. Now next up, this is actually one of my own personal tech cards I actually run. I run 2 Parallel Twister in the deck. Now, the reason I think this card's pretty good in the deck is actually to combine this effect with either a dead Hysteric Sign on your side of the field or a dead Hysteric Party or something on your side of the field. This card simply has the effect is that when you send one of the spell trap you control to the graveyard, and you get to target 1 card on your opponent's side of the field, and then you destroy it. Or no, you just target 1 card in the field and destroy it. My bad. I thought it was opponents. Sorry that. This is actually, now in my opinion, this is a pretty underrated card in my opinion, because like I said, you can use this effect with Hysteric Sign. In case if you have a dead Hysteric Sign after you activate the search for Elegant Egotist, you could just send it, get rid of a card, and plus it's a good out to some cards that can easily stop this deck, like either the Digilock or maybe you want to stop your opponent from Pendulum Summoning the next turn, like No More Scout or something like that. This card's pretty good for that. I really like this card. I think it's really, really underrated, and I really think people should give the card a try. It's actually pretty good with the deck. And I run this Elegant Egotist. I feel there's no point running this at 2. I mean, you have 3 Hysteric Sign. You could easily bring this back every freaking time. But anyway, 1 Dark Hole. I'm gonna replace this with Raigeki when I get another one. And here is my other tech card: is Divine Wind. Hood, this is the main reason that I think the first effect of Harpie Harvest N is really underrated. I think should be used. This card you can just abuse that effect really good. You just return a monster like a problem monster on the field, and then you just do that, return them, and then you get to special another level 4 lower wind monster on the field, which that's a pretty damn good effect in my opinion. And that's just a really good card. It's really good. It makes your rank 4 plays a lot more faster and more consistent. Sorry for that, people. And for the trap card lineup, I went 3 Static Party. I originally ran 2. I did run this to 3, but I felt 2 was really mandatory back then. But now with the effect of Harpie Harpist, you basically don't have to worry so much about this trap being a dead card anymore. Because the effect of Hysteric Party actually can... Because Hysteric Party is pretty much like the soul jar for the deck. You discard a card, you can special on as many Harpie Ladies on the field as possible. However, it does have a cost though, where if this card leaves the field, you destroy those monsters. Now, that may seem bad as your opponent can just easily MST it, but keep in mind though, like I mentioned, your Harpie Harpist gets your search as soon as it gets sent to the graveyard, which means you could chain this to an MST, discard a card, you special on Harpist and maybe a few other Harpie Ladies. This card gets destroyed, Harpist goes to the graveyard. True, you may have discarded a card, but keep in mind with Harpist, you could fix that by adding another Harpie Lady to your hand. And that is actually, in my opinion, a really makes this card much more life and even more better trap card. Next up, 2 breakthroughs, 2-dimensional piercing. I do like Deep Prison, but personally, I've always preferred Mirror Force just because it destroys multiple monsters. But I like Deep Prison against most of the matchups a little bit more because it just removes a problem monster. But my main complaint, the one card I'm actually thinking of taking these 2 out, and this is a card that I think is really good in this deck, but it's also a card lots of people have been thinking about using. It's a card called Anti-Spell Fragrance. For those who are not sure what Anti-Spell Fragrance does, it's a trap card where, as long as it stays on the field, both players have to set a spell card on their side of the field, and they cannot activate them until the end of the next turn. Until the end of the next turn after they were set. That's actually pretty good with this deck, because since you do use Hunting Ground a lot to destroy spell traps, that's really good against the Necross matchup, because that means you could go, okay, you put down a lot of face downs. I know you don't run into back row, so I'll just go ahead and special on a crap ton of Harpies, get rid of all your back row, and just return some of them with Lion Shadori, yada. And that's the reason I want to run Anti-Spell Fragrance over this. I just think it's a much better trap. But either way, 2 breakthrough skill, nothing too special, and 2 Phoenix Swing Wind Blast. I like this card a lot more. Now that we got Harpie Harvest and new ways to search and stuff, I like this card a lot. It's really good to screw up my opponent's plays and force them to return something on the top of their deck back to their deck. But anyway, time for the extra deck. For the rank 7s, I run number 74, Master of Blades, number 11, Big Eye, and Make a Famous Dragon Deck. Just the staple 3, nothing too special. And then for the rank 4s, I won 2 Ice Beast Terrifying. Surprisingly, this is really good against the Cleafor matchup. As long as your opponent doesn't have Skill Drain on the field, this card or lose 1 turn, this card just destroys the deck. It prevents them from searching. They can still pendulum some, but it just prevents them from using their effects. And I think that's really good for this deck. And either way, it's just good. It's also really good for the OTK push. It's a really good card for the OTK push, in my opinion. Then next up, I won the other staples like Exciton Knight, Gaga Cowboy, Harlan Draco. I actually like this card in the deck. It's really good with the Hunting Grounds field spell on the field. 1 Dark Rebellion Exceed Giant. It's just to help get over some big problem monsters. And 1 King of the Pharaohs. This is the main searcher you want to go for the first turn to get a Kagetagagi and that stuff. 1 copy of Abystrella, just a good card. And 1 copy of Lightning Shidori. And then 1 number 101 Cyanarch, and I guess Emerald for the extra rank, or for just to get the deck more dry and more consistency. And this is probably one of my favorite tech cards, and I've used this tech card a lot. I want F-Zero in the deck. The main reason I like F-Zero is because you need to have 2 Exceeds with the same rank, but they cannot be number monsters. And if you've seen the whole deck so far, the majority of, over 80% of the extra deck is mostly, outside of the rank 7s of course, the majority of 80% of the rank 4s are not number monsters. So, and because you do use their effects in just a couple turns, you could just replace them with this card. Plus, this card, although is good for stunning and stalling, it's also a really good card to push for OTKs. You can attack your opponent's monster, use the all monster against them, and push for an OTK. Hey, I really think this card's really good, actually. It just sucks nobody really runs it, but I really like the card. It's just really good in the deck. Alright, that's it for the Harpie Lady Deck Profile, people. I hope you enjoyed this deck profile. Let me know what you personally think of this deck, and do you think I should take out Deep Prison for the Yeah, for anti-spell fragrance, let me know comments below your personal thoughts, maybe some other changes you would recommend. But for what I tested on Deck Pro, it's by far the most consistent version I've run. So thanks for watching, people. I'll see you guys in another deck profile in the future. Thanks.